previously on Supa-Saturdays Draw Along.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturdays, 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 draw along.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everything in between. Welcome once again to Supa-Saturdays Draw Along with me, Jerome Hinds. It's 6 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. UK, and 6 a.m. where I am, here in sunny Singapore. So yes, it's very early in the morning here, but it's my pleasure to be here with you for another Supa-Saturdays Draw Along. Let me set the mood with some stuff that I sequenced earlier, about a month ago. Welcome once again indeed, to Supa-Saturdays Draw Along. And over the recent weeks, I've been doing a whole montage of all of the very large superheroes. I think first it was Goliath, then it was Giant Man, then it was Black Goliath, and Old School Goliath. And now we're focused on Colossal Boy here. So we're going through all the usual stages because the show is called Supa-Saturdays Draw Along. So I do try to urge you to get your pencils, styluses, everything at the ready. And what was it I always say when we're sketching? What do I always say? I always say, keep those pencils light. Indeed. And I'm working digitally. So you must remember to save. And don't procrastinate. Just do it. Just do it. Absolutely. So the thing is, my monitor's so low here. Is my music there? Let me just see if my music's playing. Oh yes, it's there. So here we are doing Colossal Boy. Last week we got through quite a bit. Right, we started first of all with the skeleton. Then we did the fleshing out. So you don't want to see me. You want to see this, don't you? Yeah, less of me. Put me in the corner. How about that? That's better. So let's zoom in. Let's see what we have here. We started with the skeleton. Then we did our fleshing out. Then as per normal, I like to find my dimensions. That is the sides and tops and fronts of everything. Then we always find the center of an object. When there's a prop or part of the body, we find the central location of each part. Then we do the contours, so we know the direction that each part of the body is traveling in. Now, I did notice something, that I was a naughty boy. I didn't do my contours or my trajectories. Someone liked that word a few weeks ago, trajectories. Yeah, that's one of my favorite words. So hold on, let me just fix this part. I always do my trajectories in orange. So here, this bicep will be going in this direction. I try to put 3 for part of the limb. And this is heavily foreshortened. So you really, really, really want to hug that cylinder of that lower arm. Get in here. And this especially helps when you come to add your costume. And these fingers, look at that finger. That finger's going in this direction. This one, similar, but slightly less so. Same here. And that one's almost pointing down, then coming up here. And this thumb is coming towards us. Good. Then we did the detail. We got to the face, but we haven't finished yet. So if I knock back all of the construction, you can see that there. You can see where we are with the detail. Now, before we get back to the face, while we were gone, I had a look at his torso. I think his waist is a bit wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of my layers. Now I'm using a software called Clip Studio Paint. You can do this in Clip Studio, but I'm not sure if you can do this in Photoshop. I'm pretty sure you can, because the version of Photoshop that I couldn't do this in was Photoshop 6. And that's quite some time ago. And I'm going to grab this part of his lower torso here, and I'm going to distort it. I'm going to go to something called Mesh Transformation. And I want him to have a more narrow waist. So I'm going to push all of my contours in and construction, etc. in a bit more. Yes, I much prefer, I'm going to put his shorts up, his belt, sorry, up a bit more. Yeah, I definitely think that looks better. So then I come to my fleshing out layer, which is there, and then my, sorry, not my fleshing out, my details layer. I'm just going to reaffirm this. So let me get my pencil. And that tilt in the belt really shows that he's leaning forward now. Yep, and something else here. You see the cylinder of the body. You want to make sure that we hug the cylinder of the body. So his abs should be slightly more angular to show that they're dropping in front. They're going away from us. I've mentioned before that one of the biggest things that throws off the artwork of a lot of lesser experienced artists, certainly myself some years back, was when you do foreshortening, you got to make sure you stay true to your contours and don't lose sight of them. Because you flatten something and you can really kill that, the depth of character or the depth of the limb, etc. Like how I just curved that belt more around his body. Now it looks like if the belt is really hugging his form a lot more. Pretty big belt Goliath has got there. Oh, there's quite a few of you watching. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for tuning in. So now we come to Colossal Boy's face, his head construction. So you can see here in the fleshing out, we've got a basic head shape in. Let's make it a bit darker so you can see that. And I keep forgetting, that the degree of how I zoom in for myself and what you see at home is very different. Now this eye, I want to move this eye back very slightly. I'm going to make it slightly smaller. I think that's nicer. Select. Go with the mouth. I'm just going to bring that lip forward a little bit more. Get around that there. Good. Now let's get the shape of his head going. So we got the eye socket, comes out for the cheek. Now his mouth is open. So we want a prolonged jaw. Let me make the sketch a bit less. So drop the chin. Oops. We drop the chin in here. Good. And Colossal Boy's got a headpiece. Now let's get the hair. Let's draw through the object. Let's get his hairline happening. So the hairline happens near that corner of the head. So he's got a costume on his head, yeah? But let's draw through the object. Let's make sure we understand the form of his head. So his sideburns would be here. Sideburns cradle the eyebrow. So that's now going to come up here. We've got the front of the face here. So we come down the side. And the ear would be there. It lines up with the eyebrow and the nose. So if you bring the nose across and up, the ear is going to fall about here. So then the chin, his mouth is open. Of course, he's got that square, that classic strongman square jaw. He's a strong guy, so he's got a thick neck. So we bring the forward in. So we've got the basic shape of the head going. And his hair is showing, and he's got a slight side parting on this side. So if there's a side parting here, remember the hair sits on the skull. And I'm going to draw through the object, as I mentioned. So the hair will come down the back. And his hair is actually quite long, but the mask is going to cover it. So I'm going to draw through the object onto about as far as here. There, and he's got side parting and hair hanging down. Got a bit of a Superman style kind of quip. And they even bring this in to his headgear, which is quite cool, I think. And his hair will go down the other side of his head. Now, we've drawn through the object enough for now. Let's start to put in the mask. So here, the mask comes down, it cradles his face. It's like a V here. So we make sure we take into account the rise in the face on the other side. We stick to the center, it comes to the center, right? Then it comes down the side of the face. So you can't see his sideburns, so we know it's going to be over here somewhere. And it goes around the cheek. So it's going to come down, the contours of the face are there, and it goes around the side of the jaw and comes down about here. I've just realized, looking at this, how slightly MAGA his eyes are. I've been living in Singapore for quite some years, and my art style has definitely been affected by a lot of the stuff that's very popular here, such as MAGA. So there's his hairline. So we're going to take his mask up to his hairline, and the mask wraps around the back of the head. So look at the contours. We've got to take into account the curve of the head. We're going to come down the back, give him that strong neck. Now the hair pops out. There, good. And you can see we've got the quiff coming over the mask from here. It bleeds over the top here, and it will slightly stick out over here. So we give some depth in the head, in the hair there. Now we can actually get rid of that little bit of construction there. It's coming for the nose, lengthen that nose slightly. A little bit more expression. So we've almost gotten there with the fundamental face construction. He's dropping his bottom lip. His teeth will be slightly showing from here, and the bottom teeth. See a bit of tongue. There, I think that'll do for the rough construction of Colossal Boy's face. I'm going to lengthen the chin just a little bit. And there was an old actor called Kirk Douglas. He had a famous son as well, Michael Douglas, who's still going. And Kirk Douglas was known for the cleft in his chin, which I always thought was very cool. There, I think that would do it for our fundamental sketch of Colossal Boy, the detail. So I'm going to switch off the other layers so we see what we've got. So there's the detail, Colossal Boy. Whoops, something dodgy on the belt there. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to sketch the spotting. Now, I remember once I did go over the legs to reaffirm certain things. So let's just quickly do that to the rest of the form, shall we? We just reaffirm the key lines. There's the underarm. Now, I'm inking this myself. If you're penciling for another inker, depending on the experience of that inker, that can determine how tight your pencils should be. And I pencil quite tight Well, other inkers. But for myself, of course, you can be pretty loose. But for Supa-Saturdays draw along, I like to keep things tight. Put it like a toy gun, so to speak. And at the back of the hand, let me put in, you can see with the construction sometimes, you kind of lose track of where exactly you are with the construction because of too many lines. This helps me reaffirm that. I'm going to bring that finger down slightly. I like that raised finger thing. That's something that one of the comic greats, a gentleman by the name of Gil Kane, used to do. So raise that index finger on a clenched fist. I really like that. So here, just reaffirming the key line. Good. Oh yes, sorry. And Colossal Boy has an earpiece like this. Remember I drew through the object there? Remember I said to keep those pencils light? That's why you can now remove that. And here with the shape of his face, slim jawline with that open mouth. Back of the jaw here. And he's got that Superman side parting. A bit wavy. And he's got this quiff coming down here, which bleeds over from the other side of the hair. Other shoulder. Look at those shoulder pads, man. I love me some Silver Age, Golden Age, Bronze Age costume design. The shoulder gear, man, is what's happening. Is what's happening. Coming off those all-important apps. Now, I must remember to keep an eye on the chat. Okay, still got a few of you watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. And it's an arm, big bicep. I'm gonna make that tricep a little bit bigger. Lower arm. Look at those gloves. Classic cap. I call these Captain America gloves. Big gloves. Then I had fun constructing this hand last week. I went full Jack Kirby and really exaggerated the squareness of the fingers. I do like constructing fundamental shapes for different parts of the body. A great artist, current day artist you could say, that does that kind of thing right in plain sight is John Romita Jr. You look at his drawing. And I was just talking about this morning on Late Night Art Attack. That's another show we have here on the Madness Entertainment Group. That goes out at 1 a.m. Saturday mornings, very late on a Friday night. And I was here earlier with Raoul Miss You. What say you, Miss You? That's what I always say to Raoul. And on that show, we were talking about various things, and I touched on some of this subject earlier today during that show. Good. So I've got my sketching reaffirmed. So let me just define that nose a little bit more. You please tidy that up. Okay, that's a bit better. So now I'm doing something called a time lapse. I'm recording what I'm doing. We've got to the end of the details stage. Next is going to come the rendering. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to export my time lapse, which might take a few minutes. And while I do that, I'm going to play you a trailer from the Kalamazoo Comic Con. Our friends over at Kalamazoo has a con coming up. It's a worthy cause. We hope you can drop in there. Of course I can. I'm all the way in Singapore. But if I was stateside, I certainly would be visiting this con. It's got a lot of guests attending. It looks really fun. So I'm going to run the trailer, take a look at this, and I'm going to export my time lapse meanwhile. Check this out.
Coming to Kalamazoo, an event so epic that it must be seen to be believed. A celebration so grand it spans 3 days. Kalamazoo Comic-Con. Join us April 10th through 12th, 2026 at the Kalamazoo Expo Center, 2900 Lake Street, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Doors open Friday from noon to 7 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Sunday 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meet legendary comic guests like Andrew Petboy, Bart Sears, Bob Hall, Corinne Roberts, Dan Monroe, Danica Davidson, Paul D. Story, Randy Zimmerman, Roger Schultz, Scott Grosema, and Tim Seeley. They're all ready to sign, sketch, and share stories from your favorite comics. And that's not all. Rub shoulders with other special guests including Blake Foster from Power Rangers, Daniel Logan from Star Wars, Hunter Dino from Power Rangers Dino Fury, Jason Douglas, the voice of Attack on Titan, Megan Shipman from My Hero Academia, Morgana Ignis from Hell of a Boss, Natalie Von Sistine from Dan to Dan, Tiffany Vollmer from Dragon Ball, Young Ye from Like a Dragon, Georgina Leahy, Christina Gailey, Christine McCulfer, Jesse Milo Miles, Kristen Simmons, and the amazing Pink Opal cosplay. Dive into non-stop activities, thrilling panels and Q&As, autograph sessions, photo ops with stars, a massive exhibit hall packed with comics, merch, and collectibles, artist alley showcases, epic cosplay contests, gaming tournaments, kids zones for family fun, and so much more to geek out over. Don't miss this ultimate celebration of comics and pop culture. Grab your tickets now at grcomiccon.com. Prices start low with 3-day passes for the full adventure. We'll see you there, heroes.
Now, don't you think that looks like fun? I wish I could be there. So here, you can see we're back now. I'm just going to export that time lapse. Now look at that etiquette. Look at all my episodes, all nicely, neatly saved. So you see Supa-Saturdays draw along there. Now you might wonder, why am I showing you this? Because when you're teaching digital, how many times have I heard students say, "Sir, I can't find my file." This is a very, very common occurrence. So when you're talking about, like imagine if you're teaching someone traditional art, you should teach them maintenance of their pencils and paintbrushes as well. I believe you should. So showing people how to save their files and their work, I call it digital etiquette. That's what I call it. So here, with my time lapse, you can see here, I'm going to stop recording time lapse now, delete and turn off. Now I'm going to start recording again because I'm at a new stage. Record time lapse. Okay, it's Clip Studio Paint that I'm using here. Now I just spotted a mistake immediately. You see, look at this. Look at the gap from the mask there to the eyebrow. If we come around the form, this mask should be up here. You must keep an eye on things like this. When you look at great artists like Jim Lee, etc., you just do not find discrepancies like that. The more accurate you get things like that, the more convincing your artwork will be. Good. So now, let's start doing some spotting. Let's start putting in a light source, okay? So I'm going to say the light is coming from in front of him. So we're going to have a lot of rendering towards the back of his form. So where should we start? Where should we start our lighting? Let's start. Okay, I haven't started from a body for a long time. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a layer, call it SP for spotting. And secondary light source. See this gap at the back here? I always I call it an accent. Put an accent behind there. Now I've got to switch off my stabilization. Stabilization is what helps you keep your pencil nice and steady. See that? You see it's lagging, but it's a smooth line. When you draw traditionally, believe it or not, there's a certain amount of friction you have. And naturally, we have stabilization, but digitally, you do not have stabilization. So this function of stabilization really helps keep things more organic. But when you're sketching, the human body is quite amazing, isn't it? When you're sketching, you lessen your stabilization. So as I'm spotting, I don't want our human stabilization. I'm going to put that to 0. And I'm going to come in here. And I want a quick responsive pencil. So in here it's going to be in darkness. Now when you render, can you see I'm rendering everything at roughly 30 degrees, the angle. Get used to rendering tight. Keep your pencils in one direction. The reason is, when you finish a commission or a page of artwork, when you shaded it in one direction, the overall appearance of the pencils is nicer. And if a person comes to buy your original artwork, the nicer your pencils are, the more chance you have of making a sale. Never mind that it's going to be covered up by ink. And of course, in this day and age, where a lot of inking is done digitally and pencils exist forever, there's every reason to take great care with your rendering. And I'm doing the gradation technique here. For those of you who have tuned into Supa-Saturdays more than once, you've heard me talk about the different styles of shading. And this is one where you have an area of black and you come out of the black with your hatching. So there's some abs going to come out of there. There's some hatching. Chest muscle, the legendary chest muscle. Come in here. Now those straps on the body, we won't actually see those. So when I drew through the object, I could remove that construction. But it shouldn't be a problem, right? Because didn't we keep our pencils light? Surely we did. Look at that. See that? I almost started rendering on the wrong layer. I'm an old man and I'm still making these horrendous mistakes. Rendering on the wrong layer. God damn. There. Now we're going to have a shadow falling from the chest plate. Coming up here. Now you know there's that unique sinew that comes over the body and meets the chest muscle. Now the light's coming from this side, so we're not going to exaggerate too much over here. The light's over the other side. Now there's some dodgy construction because this forearm is in front. So let's go back to our construction layer. And drop in the forearm coming up here. Oh, lovely. Go back to our spotting. And we put another shadow under here. Put a shadow here. Let's get a body there. Now let's get these creases accentuated. In the gloves, this is away from the light. So there's going to be a shadow at the back of the glove. Fingers, we put a shadow on the knuckle and the back of the hand. There was an inker named Joe Sinnott, used to ink Jack Kirby. And the way he would put shadows at the back of things like this, his inking was very nice indeed. I'm just going to put a simple shadow towards the back of the fingers. Nothing too extreme. Wow, we've actually upped our viewership. Thank you so much for tuning in to Supa-Saturdays Draw Along with me, Jerome Hinds. Now here's that rendering thing I just mentioned. Keep those pencils in one direction. I'm doing it 30 degrees left to right. There. Now, I'm not going to tempt fate, okay? I'm going to lock my details layer. I don't trust me. I've been doing a lot of stuff on the wrong layer recently. I think old age is setting in. Old age is setting in. Ah, there. Right, now this chest plate, the material is quite tough. So things, for example, like his collarbone, I drew to the object there. His collarbone is not particularly going to show. You see the material is leaving his body there. Now, it's okay to have it showing here. Whoops, look at that. I forgot the underside of the throat. It's going to come down here, yeah? I don't mind a bit of collarbone showing here. The costume is much nearer to his actual form. I do love some of these things that you see in comics, which are not possible, strictly kind of speaking, in real life. So the light's coming from in front of him. I'm going to put some shadows behind here. Come into the light. Come into the light, boy. Back of the head, I'm going to put a piece of shadow here, and I'm going to come into the light. With this earpiece. Good. Now his straps are quite a dark color. So I think if this costume was actually done for a movie, I think these straps are probably black. But you know how comics often interpret black as a dark blue. So these want to be darker in the surrounding materials. We put a thickness in the strap. There. And then I'm going to put a bit of what I call image rendering in that strap, where it comes out into the light. I've talked about the rendering that was seen in Image Comics, which I thought was some of the art styles that were like championed by people like Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee. They did kind of do something that wasn't so broadly done before, was that gradation rendering, where horizontals and verticals came out of the black, parallel to the spotting, which wasn't so commonly done before that. I've spoken about that before on the show. You won't see the shoulder through there, where we drew through the object. I can remove that now. Now remember, if you followed me, you kept those pencils light, didn't you? So that should not be a problem. Okay, put a shadow in here. Under there, bit of gradation here. And we put a shadow under here. Under there, boy. Fill that in. Again, I'm keeping those pencils at a 30 to 45 degree slant. Okay, let's go back to the head. There's going to be a shadow falls behind the hair. And I give the top of the mask a little bit of a thickness. And we put in a little bit of lighting here. A little bit here as well. Nothing too extreme. The side of the face. With this side of the face going away from us, we can put in a bit behind that cheek. Shadow behind the jaw. Bit of shadow behind here. Bit of shadow under the nose. And the other side of the nose here. Under the eye. Bit of construction there. We don't need this. Look at me. I'm not locking my layers. Such confidence. It's embarrassing, but I have to admit that I've been doing some stuff on the wrong layers recently. And because I'm a layers Nazi, I insist in going back and fixing stuff on the wrong layer. It's because I mentioned that I do teaching. I have to do that because on my notes, but I can't have errors on my notes, right? So when I'm compiling the syllabus, I can't have things in the wrong place. Can't do that, boy. Okay, so that's rendering the face. Again, our detail. Let's go and switch off our construction. We're going to be dropping some rendering for the hair now. So as mentioned, the light source is coming from that side over there. So we put some shading here for the hair. Here is a funny thing. You can do as much as you care, but the amount of detail you put into hair is really quite a subjective thing. I'm going to put a shadow at the back of the head, as I mentioned, because the light source is coming from the other side. Now there's a side parting here. There's always a bit of shadow going to be in here. Down the side of the head. Put a bit of backlighting behind there. There. And now the hair's coming over the top. Now his hair's slightly wavy. So I'm going to do a shape for a bit of spotting. Then I'm going to fill that in. They're going to come up here. I'm going to put a bit of a highlight there. So I'm going to render this. And something that I like to do, whether drawing digitally or traditionally, is what I call a touchdown technique. So you go left, right, left, right, left, right. Where you're pulling, so I'm going left, right, left, right. I'm not sure if you can hear that over the speaker system. And with a brush pen, depending on how free your wrist is, you can get quite a nice effect going with this. Now we bring it over and you put a bit of movement in it. You see I've slightly rotated my canvas. Then we put in a little bit of shade here. The light's coming from this side, but you know hair can really refract light in a very interesting way. Then in this darker part, we put in a few extra longer strands to get that shimmer in the hair. And one of my favorite inkers of all time, a gentleman by the name of Tom Palmer. My God, when he would ink Neil Adams, the shimmer that those guys would get going together. Unbelievable. Okay, so I've rendered the face. Let's go back to the body. The body. Here's a strap. I'm going to put in a bit of dark over here. Let's get our image rendering going. I'm going vertical with my image stuff. I'm living dangerously. Quite regularly, you'll find a lot of that gradation rendering is left to right, horizontal. You don't often see it vertical, but for this strap on the body, I think it fits to really show that it's not an organic material. Good. Then we're going to put a bit of a shadow underneath. And I'm going to put a little bit of rendering going up here to show the light is coming from the left. We'll put a bit of shadowing here on that strap. Put an accent here as well. Same here. Now this is what you call creative license. I'll put a bit of shadow in there to bring the logo forward. I'm going to make the logo shimmer a bit. I'm going to put in a little bit of render. There's like an eagle on his chest. Good. go to the other side now. And chest muscle. Let's render that. No, you can probably tell I'm an old school kind of artist, right? And the gradation shading that I've mentioned before, like here, here's a nice one you can have. Here's your classic horizontal one going up. And I'm going to do something similar here, where the gradation comes from the base, then it needs a bit of shadow. Come to the rib cage. Bit of shadow under there. Abs. Gotta have some abs going, boy. There. We just begin to see the beginning of the ribs. Drop a bit of rendering there. Good. Now we come up to the shoulder. We put a shadow here. And let's take this into the light there. Keep a little bit of shadow under the chest plate. Then it meets the chest. We put some sinews in there. Shoulder muscle. There, come down. Top of that muscle there. Remember, our light is coming from the left. Shadow there. Same again here. I'm going to put a global piece of rendering there on that bicep. Coming to the forearm. Now, this is a bit on the underside. We can have a bit of rendering on the underside there. Yeah, I'm keeping that rendering at an angle. Then under here drops into the darkness. The Darkness. You know, there's a rock band called The Darkness. They came to Singapore the other day and I missed it. Very good band. Yep, they were in town, man, but I couldn't make it. Goddamn shame you couldn't make that concert. So here, this goes so on that image, man. It's a thick, thin, thick, thick, thin, thick. We come up into the light. An accent behind there. And we render. Remember, keep those pencils in one direction. I have to make one of those special effects with one direction. It is quite a big thing. An accent here. Okay, let's put in some feeling for the hands. Let's get the knuckles a bit accentuated. Put the thickness of the fingers in. Contour down here. There. Accentuate those knuckles, boy. There's nothing like exaggerated knuckles. Actually, those are not knuckles, those are finger joints. Excuse me. Excuse me. Putting a shot at the back of the hand. Okay. So there we rendered the upper body. Now let me just check. There's a comment I see. Who's there? What says evening, Dustin? I can't actually see who's watching. Hello, Dustin, if you're out there, boy. I will put long live the Legion. That's Dan Sen. Hello, Dan. Can Clip Studio be used on an iPad? Yes, Dan. There is an iPad. There's an iPad edition. Can indeed. It's a little bit different because you don't really have a keypad. But of course, you can attach a keyboard to your iPad, and then I believe it functions 100% the same. But yeah, one of my students actually uses an iPad with her Clip Studio Paint. It just crossed my mind actually. I always talk about my students, right? But I never really show anything about what I actually teach. Let me just call up something quickly that I was doing with a student this week that was interesting. I won't. Let's have a look. Where's my clip studio? There. Here's something very typical that I would do with a student. Very typical. Well, okay, look at this. I had one student, she is doing animation. And I'm going through perspective with her and lighting and her car, etc., etc. So coloring in Clip Studio Paint, etc. First of all, there's the perspective on the buildings, but doing this sort of lighting in just every aspect, if you like. This is a typical sort of thing that I would do with a student. It's very, very varied. And it's great fun, but no two lessons are the same, you could say. It depends on what it is also that they want to learn. Now, look at this belt. This belt has a dial that has a raised thing on the front. Now, can you see, I'm going to move this center part to get the depth of the belt happening, because this side should be thicker and there's an inside there. So going back to my details layer, and I've fixed that. I've made that a bit tighter, So now I get back to my spotting. Now this belt is metal. So I'm going to give it more of a metal presence. I'm going to stick this over the top. There, thick, thin, thick. Here's a Jim Starlin render. He would do metal like that. God damn. Jim Starlin early on a Sunday morning in Singapore. I don't know if any of you were watching a few weeks ago. Right, I mentioned that one of my idols is indeed Jim Starlin. And it pains me to say that if there's one thing I know Jim Starlin is not good at, is inking. And I put out a challenge to Mr. Starlin. We can have an ink off, see who can ink the best. And even if Jim Starlin got word of this, he's gonna say, who gives a damn? I don't think that man's been doing artwork now for many years. He just focuses on writing. But he affected a lot of us young comic geeks back in the 1970s. His art style was super, super powerful. He did huge muscles, amazingly huge muscles, and very aggressive. Very aggressive, what you say, storytelling styles. Now, the light's coming from the left, as mentioned. Let's do this leg. That's in the foreground. One direction for that rendering, don't forget. This is more important with real pencils. If you are drawing on paper, this one direction thing. Now this leg is falling pretty much in the darkness. So I'm going to put quite a big shadow on his underleg here. Come up with some gradation here. Game there. Big gradation here. And now a big piece of render. Big piece of render here. I'm with you until 7:30 p.m. Eastern. This stream on the Madness Entertainment Group is from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern on a Saturday. Now you guys have daylight saving time. So I have to keep an eye on that because I'm in Singapore. And now we are exactly 12 hours ahead of you. But when your clocks go back, I then get an extra hour of sleep. So when I first started this stream, it was at this time. Then your clocks went back and I had an extra hour. But now they've gone forward again. It's very early, 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I don't know the last time I've been awake at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning on a regular basis. That was quite some years ago. Right, now Colossal Boy has his pants outside. So behind here, we put a bit of shading, creases in the trunks. There, back of the knee. Let's put in a bit of rendering coming up here. Coming up here. Now, someone asked me, Jerry, where do you know where to put the shading? And the first rule is the light source. Okay, we can all agree on that. If you know where the light source is, you can pretty much have a good gauge of where certain shadows may fall. But it's also true to say that sometimes you may not exactly follow the reality of the situation. There's a bit of creative license in there, but only within reason. If you break light source rules too much, your drawing can look a mess. Yeah, it can be very, very tough on your artwork. Now, if you were here last week, you would hear me bragging about how large my boots were. I was inspired by Gene Colan. He is the master of oversized boots, or was the master of oversized boots. No longer with us. That's the thing, when you're born in the wrong era. Like, Chuck Norris left us recently. One of those sad facts of life. Now, I'm changing the trajectory of the center parting of the boot. So now we're going to come in from behind, put a big shadow here. Is our spotting. And I'm going to put in a big shadow down here. Then a lesser one at the top. That takes into account the thickness of the boot. And I put in a very slight one here. Let's render our spotting. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, me and Raul were having great fun during a stream. And I forgot to check the messages. And there's a conversation going and we ignored you all. How rude. So let me have a quick look up, make sure there's nothing there lurking. Oh yes, Dan said something here. I met Jim Starling at the New York Comic Con. I asked him for a commission. He said he was not doing any, but drew me a super simple 30-second Thanos, free of charge. Oh, that was nice of him. Excellent. Have you still got that, Dan? If you've got it, please do share. I'd love to see that. Superb, man. There. Now we come in for the boots. Can you see my computer stalling there? It's saving. Clip Studio Paint does momentary backups. So if you ever lose a lot of work in Clip Studio Paint, you can go into the system folder and find an earlier version of whatever you're working on. It's not so important now because computers are more stable. But it used to be kind of a godsend. I've used it before in the past. I had one student that lost a load of work, but we found a good backup in the system folder. But the software and computers in general are just more reliable now. Remember, the light is coming from the left. I'm going to put in an accent here. We're going to the sole of the boot. So there, when the left back. Now this is something that Jim Starlin did that I really like. He put the shape of shoes on Captain Marvel, which I thought was marvelous. Marvelous. Captain Marvel was marvelous. Bit of a shadow behind. Now this foot's pretty much in the darkness. I'm going to put an accent at the back. Big shadow here. Now the artist that I mentioned earlier, Gene Colan, he was a master of shadows. And when I was very young, I wasn't very keen because I thought everything looked too dark. Then started to grow on me. And I especially liked him when he drew Doctor Strange. It was absolutely perfect. And as time went by, I became a Gene Colan addict. And he would often draw bits of anatomy, I suppose you could say, technically incorrect. But you know, it's those bits of incorrectness, if you like, that gives a comic artist their own individuality. And, okay, in danger of sounding like a real boomer, one of the things that I miss from modern superhero comics, with modern superhero comics, is the accuracy of rendering. It's very spot on now. It's because the artists are often using references. So technically, a lot of things are very accurate. But spiritually, I'm getting deep with you here on a Saturday evening, man. On a spiritual level, I'm not so keen. You know, different artists have their own quirks that you grow to love in the superhero genre. But times change. If the newer reader likes things to be more photorealistic, then such is life. Nothing you can really do about that. So I'm going to put in a big shadow behind here. I'm going to take this into the light now. Let's put our shape in here again. Now it's come to the sole. We don't need that back accent. See, if I don't put an accent here, actually, well, I don't need an accent there, to be honest. Let me get rid of my ugly rendering. I may or may not want an accent there. It's not so important because the sole is blocking the outer perimeter. So Jim Starlin shoe, look at that squareness. God damn. Square that shoe off. Let me render behind here. I do like Clip Studio Paint, you know. It does feel like if I'm working organically. I kid you not. People are asking, how much are they paying you, Jerome? How much are they paying you, Jerry, to say all these kind things about the software? And the answer is nada, not a thing. Okay, so here's, oh my goodness, it looks like we got a few people watching. Thank you so much for tuning in to Super Saturdays Draw Along with me, Jerome Hinds. We've just constructed Colossal Boy in a stance. So we got a few people watching, so I think some of you it's right to assume that some of you weren't here from the beginning. So let me show you what we do here on Draw Along. I encourage everyone to get their stylus, pens, pencils at the ready, and we start from scratch. Now, to show you how much I'm trying to keep it real, there is a white screen, correct? But I like to make you think I'm working on paper, so I import a paper texture. How about that? So then we start with a skeleton. Yeah, and my skeletons are always in red. Then we go for the fleshing out, where we go for the basic shapes of those parts of the flesh. Let's make that darker. So I'm going to make the skeleton lighter now, so we can keep track of what we're doing, yeah? So there's a skeleton lighter. So there's our fundamental body parts, all the cylinders, and a bit of anatomy as well. I kind of skipped one stage here, because normally you can put these shapes in really, really basic form, right? But there's a bit of shape to them there. Then we went for the dimensions, whereas we find the side, front, tops, and backs of everything. We put that in with a purple pencil. If you like this kind of thing, be sure to get in with the late pledges over on the Kickstarter, Thunderzone Comics Return, where I've done a tutorial book on how to draw characters from Thunderzone. And there's loads of exercises like this with characters from Thunderzone. After this, we find the center of each of the body parts. I do that with a blue line. So here, you see we found the center of the lower foot and the foot and lower leg. The body. Of course, the center of the body is further forward in the spine because the spine is at the back of the body. Does that all make sense? Good. Then after that, we find the contours. This is the direction each thing is traveling in. I normally depict that with an orange pencil. If you draw something and it looks a bit off, if you go back and you check all of your steps to all of this, you may be able to fix some of the problems that you come across in your drawing. Then we go for the detail. So I'm going to knock everything back so we can see that more clearly. So there, with all that construction, we then put in our costume. Then I do the spotting, where we put in the blacks. Now, quite often, I would also not do the hatching on this layer, but I did the hatching with the spotting. Good. So now we can come to, or we can do some inking. So let's lock our layers. Don't be a naughty boy. Let's make a new layer. And we call this inking KL, keyline. What we do here is we only ink the parts of the character that are separate, that have separate colors. This is to make the coloring process more simple. Okay? So let's look at this costume. We'll make it a bit lighter. You can still see that on your screen, right? Yeah. Go to my inking layer. Now I'm not going to lock this because with the inking layer, if I'm on the wrong layer, it's going to be very clear because the opacity is taken down. So no danger of going too far on the wrong layer. So Dan has said something else. What's this? I think I still have it, but not sure where after I moved. Okay, yes, I'm asking Dan for his Jim Starlin sketch. I'd love to see that. And my friend Johnny went to School of Visual Arts. Gene Colan and Will Eisner were among his teachers. I've got goosebumps with jealousy. Oh my God, can you imagine? I would have lost my mind. But you know what? That must be quite tough. To be a fanboy inside a class like that. Oh man. Okay, so now my inking pen, I use a pen called a mapping pen in this software. And let's see how thick it is. I'm using 6 pixels. that looks pretty decent. So I'm going to ink with 6 pixels. So let's start with the back of the boot. Now I like an organic line, so I'm going to start thick. I'm going to come into thin and thick, thin, thick. Now something that I learned from an inker named Gary Martin, if I'm not mistaken actually, here on the Madness Entertainment group, I think that there's a stream that features someone named Steve Rude. I don't want to be getting my comic artists confused. But Gary Martin used to ink for Steve Rude. Please, anyone watching out there, I don't want to look a fool. No, sorry, it's Mike Barron. That's on the Madness Entertainment group, I think. Mike Barron, if I'm not mistaken, worked with Gary Martin on the Nexus series. And I bought a book on inking by Gary Martin many years ago, and it was absolutely brilliant. And he taught me a lot in that book. And one thing that he mentioned before was you can dictate a light source with your key lines. If you know where your light is coming from, you don't have to do this. But if you know where your light is coming from, be sure to put a thinner line facing your light source and thicker lines going away from your light source. And before any rendering is done, you would have already dictated a light source, which I thought was absolutely brilliant piece of advice. Now the shoes are quite inorganic, so I like to keep a thick sole. Now, as well, when you're inking, when I'm inking certainly, I may correct bits of pencils that I think I can actually improve. You want to know one way you can test if your inking is good or not? A simple test. You may pencil something and it looks pretty good. But when you ink it, it does not look as good as the pencils. That means that your inking has failed, fundamentally. And it was a long time before my inked images actually looked better than my pencils. But when you get it right, you will see it immediately. Now, see what I've done here? Do you notice that I've not gone around the bottom of the boot? I did it there, but I didn't have to do that because this is actually all one color. So anything that's one color, within reason, you do not put in the lines to break it up. You do it on a separate layer. So I'm going to come up here. I'm just going to put the back of the leg in here. Now this is facing the light source. So what I just mentioned, I'm going to put some thick and thin going on there. Thin, thick. Thin. Coming to the back, thick. No, our boy's got his pants outside. So we need a line coming around the back. Look at the size of the... I'm not sure what that muscle is called at the back of the leg. Dan, who's watching, is a bodybuilder. He's the publisher of Thunder Zone Comics and Argo Comics. And he's also a bodybuilder. So Dan, if you're there, can you tell me what the name of the muscle is that's behind the thigh, the back of the leg? Okay, this is a metal belt. I'm not going to vary this line. I'm going to keep this as a dead weight because there's no organic business involved. I'm putting a bit more contour into that body there. Now you see that for some reason, A bit of thick thin on that piece of outer material there going to the light. Seems to feel right. Computer saving. Pants outside. There's that thigh muscle. I'm going to make that thigh bigger. There. Good. And what do I need to do? I need to
Save!
say it again.
Save!
I need to save. I've not saved for a long time. Meanwhile, I think there's a couple more comments here. Mike is a writer, not the artist. Oh, thanks, Pops. Mike Barron is a writer. Correct. Right. I always get confused, you know. Steve Wood is the artist of Nexus. Correct. Thank you, Pops. And Gary Martin was the inker. Yeah. The back of the legs is the hamstrings. I see, yes. A lot of my football friends always pull their hamstrings. Speaking of the devil, I had a game of football earlier. We lost 3-0, 3-0. I didn't play. It wasn't one of my best games, I must say. Whoops, look at that. I almost did some detail in the belt where it's not needed. That's going to be all one color. That's going to go in another layer. So let's go for the gloves. So come up here. Come up around, go around the back. Now you see that meeting that pinnacle. There. The back of that glove comes to that point here. Shows the flick of the glove. Coming from the knuckles. See, I'm actually shaping these knuckles a little bit more. I'm going to bulk up that finger as well. On a Jim Starlin. Hang on. The thumb would be encroaching here now. I remember when I first saw Jim Starlin's fingers on Captain Marvel. Opened up a new world to me. And I'm going to make that little finger a little bit smaller. Now all that glove is one color. So I'm going to leave all of that in a detail to the next layer of inking. Bicep. Shoulder muscle. I don't like that shape. I'm going to bring this in a bit more. Good. Now we got the outer shoulder piece. Comes in. Now I'm going to use some tools from this software shortly. Because that strap is quite inorganic. So I'm going to give that a dead weight line. I'm going to dip it and then bring it back in for the shoulder. Those lats. Is that correct, Dan? Is that a lat? A latissimus dorsi, I think I remember the full name. Get the back of the neck in. No, I don't need to carry that line that long because again, that is one color. But let's stick with the body. Let's bring this line down because this is indeed a different color. Is it a different color? Yes, it's a different color to the body. So I'm going to bring this line down. Now, if I was inking traditionally, I might have to use a French curve for that. I'm going to put a bit more of a curve in that, hugging the body. Let's bring in the other shoulder piece. Come down. Curve that body. The far side strap. Now I'm going to take that over slightly. Good. Now, we've come to the indicia on the chest. And for this, I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to get the circle tool. Make sure my line's the same thickness. 6, but I'm going to leave it at 5. 5 should be thick enough. Nope. Don't second guess yourself, boy. So that's about the right size. Tilt it slightly. Okay, now let's bring it into position. Good, a bit taller. Control T. And I want to distort, free transform. We want to take it over a bit. Now remember, his body is tilted. So we've got to take into account the tilt of the circle. You want to get your circle at perspective. Good. That'll do for now. Erase that. We're going to come back later and put in the inner line on another layer. So that's a circle. I can merge this with the inking. Let's go back to our shoulder pad. We come up. And it's going towards the light. So it's still a dead weight, but a little bit thinner. Good. How are we doing for time? Huh? 1 hour, 15 minutes is gone already? Can't believe it. Good Lord. Okay, let's get our key lines done. Got 15 minutes, boy. Get our key lines done. Good. Now the body's all one color, so we can come in here now. Oh, this time went so fast, it's scary. You know, the older you get, right? You've heard it all before. Really, the older you get, the faster time goes. It's incredible. I remember when I was a kid, when we were on our school break for 6 weeks, that used to take forever. By the end of it, we couldn't wait to get back to school. 6 weeks now is like nothing. Don't I sound like an old man? I remember my dad's friends saying to me, time is going to go very fast. Before you know what happens, you're going to be old. When you're young, you just brush it off, don't you? You don't really believe them. Now put a bit of a thickness in the back of that. Again here, I'm going to vary the shape of these fingers very slightly. Look at that flat Jack Kirby finger. God damn. That brother's cooking. Sometimes my wife is not impressed with me impersonating other artists and shouting about it as if I've done something fantastic. She has no idea. If I actually get something drawn that looks remotely like my idols, I'm a very happy young man. Okay, now that earpiece is the same color as the mask. So I'm going to come in here first. Do that. The head is the same color here. Chin, different. Put the Kirk Douglas cleft in. Now, am I over-exaggerating that jaw? Maybe. Calm down, boy. And let's get that strong chin in. No, I think I've overdone that, haven't I? Okay. I second-guessed myself there. And I'm not sure if I was doing a better job. Relax, Jerome. So now we put in the mask. The mask is another contour. So we have got to put a certain amount of weight behind that. Here's a different surface. So now I'm going to shape the hair. I'm going to bring his quiff over a little bit more from here. Bring it up. Then I'm going to make it a little bit more bulbous, like that. Make the hair overhang. Then I'm going to bring the mask in. Yeah. I'm going to make a little bit of hair overhang. Then I'm going to bring in the mask. Hair. Put a little bit poking off there. Put a slight wave to it. And give a slight bit of thickness so it goes behind the mask. Now let's put in the shape of the mouth. This is definitely a different color. The lips. Now, I wanted to put a cleft in that, but I went too far. Now the teeth are projecting. I'm not going to put any shape of the teeth in. There. No need to put in the lower lip. That's going to be on a different, we're going to depict on a different layer. Got the teeth in. Now, I don't know, I shouldn't really be putting the nose in on this layer because it's all within one color. I'm just going to drop it in. Now the eyes, that's different. That's going to be on this layer. There, come around. As I mentioned earlier, I've definitely been affected by manga. There's definitely certain things that I draw that look a bit different to what they used to look years ago. Exaggerating that a bit too much. Bring the eyebrow up, down and over. I'm going to put the double eyelid on this layer. Putting the eyeball. Now remember, the eye is slightly averted from us, so there's going to be a depth within it. Put an eyeball here at the front, then the pupil and the shadow from the eyelid. This was the shadow from the eyelid. Okay, that's the basics. That's the basic key line I'm inking. Now here, I'm going to thicken up the eyelash there and here. Good, so now we go to the next layer. Let's just check. Oh, that says here. Yes, going into the gym to work my lats. We'll have to watch the rest on the replay. Great stuff. Cheers, Dan. Boy, Dan is still going to the gym. My goodness. I was always a bit too lazy to go to the gym too regularly. Right, so let's get to what I was talking about. The inner detail here. Now we put these lines in on a separate layer. The sole of the shoe, see that? And it's a thinner line. Remember, your inner detail is always thinner. Your key lines. That foot's going to encroach, and we're going to start to see the sole as it materializes from the bottom of the foot. We already put that line in. Now we come up here. Now we get to the belt. So here, let's use a different tool just so you can see something different going on. These are some decorations that's in the belt. And there's a shape here. And I'm using the curve tool. There. And we can just about see it poking up over here. And this tool can save time with very inorganic things. We come to the shape, the circle on the belt. So like how we did, because this is all one color, this is why it's going to be on a different layer. Now I want this to be a bit thinner, like the other decorations. That's a bit too thin. Let's go a bit bigger. that do. So there. And let's move this into position. Now remember, the belt is at perspective. So retransform. That body is leaning, correct? So the circle is going to lean. Look at the gap between the shapes on the outer side and this. I've already drawn it with the perspective tilting in mind. Good. And it has an inner circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that. Make this smaller, because that's going to be at the same trajectory. And then drop it in. Now you see that belt has a thickness. The dial, can you see? There's a thickness to the dial. And from this angle, we're going to see more top and side than bottom and left side. So that gives us a good shape for that. We can duplicate this to give us the thickness that's inside the belt. Now we can erase the bits that we don't want. We don't want that. The layer before, we don't want this. And the main circle, we don't want this. Good, and we can put this now over the inking detail layer. Good. So let's do some more of the same with the chest logo. Make another layer. I'm actually, now let's keep it simple. So let's get roughly the right shape. We can reshape it after. So this logo, again, has a different kind of thickness to it. So the out, we would see more of the top and the right side. There, that gives us some depth on that chest logo. Merge that down. And I'm going to draw the bird on a separate layer. Because now that I've got this displacement in fact, this bird is quite mechanical. So just for the sake of this stream, it's interesting to use different tools, right? I'm going to use the irregular shape tool. It's a bit like graphic design. I spent 30 years in graphic design. So using this sort of tool, I have to say, I do like it. Let's move that in position a bit more. Sorry, let me finish drawing first, shall I? Now I'm going to use another tool here. I'm going to make this tool finish with a sharp edge. Can you see here? It's going into nothing. And I want it to happen on both sides now. So I'm going to put an effect in here. And I only want it to happen now with the ending. There. And there. Good. Now we can move this bird into position a bit better. Rotate him slightly. Good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to move that into the inking detail. There. How are we doing for time? Ooh, 2 minutes left. I have to wrap it up. We finished our key lines. Just about. Whoops. I finished. Look at that. I missed the underside of his arm. What the? Let me just quickly put that in before I say goodnight. There. I'm notorious for this. Getting overexcited. I'm not spotting a few things like this. And I'm going to shape that lower abdomen. Good. And inking detail. Let's just put in this forearm very quickly. Good. And the underarm. Okay. And we shall continue next week. me. Wow. Quite a few of you seem to be watching. Thanks so much for tuning in, you know. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. Right? We've started our inking on Colossal Boy. This has been great fun. And I will be here again, same time next week, which is 6 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. UK, 6 a.m. Singapore. And I'm going to run a couple of trailers. And I shall see you back here, same time next week. Or Friday night, late night art attack. I'm here with Raoul Miss You. 2 hours where we draw literally anything. Right, I did Chuck Norris last week, and you'll see on the end credits, I'm going to rerun that as a tribute to him. But thanks so much for tuning in. It was very good fun. Some great questions. And I can see, looks like quite a few of you out there tuned in. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, let's see what's selling from the Madness Entertainment Group and yours truly. And I will see you here again next week at the same time. Peace!
Ozzy, what are you doing? Come and have a look at this lovely book that was sent over.
You're wrapping in the perpendicular.
Oh, go on and spit the bat out your mouth. No one can understand you like that.
Better now. 6 out of 5 dentists and all.
Oh, well, that's not much better. Ozzy, why don't you sing to me? I can always understand you when you sing to me.
Fucking my brains. What is this my publisher sent me? Inked in black with art so sweet.
So what do you think? Do you like it?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
If you missed the live viewing of any Meg production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. Madness Entertainment Group.